Catus, Maximus here, this time with a little bit of a historical tool. This is a Pexto. This is a company that can be traced back to the late 1700s, from somewhere around 1785 to 1797. They were a company that ended up doing a lot of sheet metal tools, and then somewhere around the 1900s or so, through around the 1970s, they got into some hand tools, but it was primarily like old school adjustable beam wrenches and pliers. They never really got much more into the hand tools. And in the 70s, they actually sold, 1970s, they ended up selling out to a company, or a company bought them for a lot of their sheet metal equipment. And so they continue to survive today. It's one of America's oldest tool companies, surprisingly enough. These Pextos here are probably somewhere between the 1950s and 1970s. The only reason I'm even doing a video about them is it was kind of a shame, or about this little set of pliers. You think slip joint pliers, I mean, you've done videos about those and nothing particularly special. Although I will say I think they were nicer than the diamond. So here I have some classic American diamond ones, and these are a bit heavier duty. There's something to be said about the jaws coming together tight on the diamonds and having a finer tip, but we can see here that these are both 5-inch rated pliers, and there just is quite a bit more mass. These Pextos are quite a bit heavier than these diamonds, and we can see that they did a pretty nice job. There's something to be said about the squared off jaws on the diamonds, but the Pextos aren't bad. We can see the chrome plating isn't perfect, but still stuck on these pliers pretty well. Not a lot else to say just because they're beefy. The big difference, and you'll see, is this. Very, very few slip joint pliers have traditional cutters on them like this. The same type of cutters that like a set of needle nose pliers or something might have. They also had an interesting little thing here. I don't know if this groove is factory, but it looks like it is because there's chrome plating inside that groove. So that would be when you're holding on the round objects. It allows a little bit of centering in the jaw. But primarily it's the cutters. Almost all slip joint pliers I have ever seen in my life, not all of them even have cutters. They're just regular slip joint pliers. And if they do have cutters, they're like these. They're like heavy-duty shear types, which work okay if you're cutting nails or thick wire. But if you're trying to cut anything else, such as stranded wire, obviously they don't work very well. They kind of cut it, but of course they just don't hold they don't hold tight enough to really make a good shear. Although those diamonds actually did a pretty good job considering. And the way they're cutting, they end up putting a lot of stress on the center rivet there. And that was the big deal about these Pextos, is they just had more normal type cutters on them. And it's a real shame that more slip joint pliers don't have just more standard type pinch cutters like this, as opposed to just basically all of them copying Diamond's old design, just using shear cutters. The shear cutters, once again, are pretty heavy duty. But you get a lot more usefulness out of these Pextos just because they have pinch type cutters. And just noticed that and thought, wow, I will end up picked up these pairs just because I was like, what is this deep groove in here? And once again, they're slip joint pliers with pinch type cutters, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Plus, they're from Pexto, which is a history company that made very few actual hand tools. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.